Bitcoin has reclaimed $100,000 as we start off the second week of January, going into this beautiful 2025. Let's take a look at the next key levels here and what I'm anticipating, at least for Bitcoin, Ethereum, the Bitcoin dominance, and a few altcoins as well. So let's jump right on in. I do want to take a quick second before we get into Bitcoin and thank this video sponsor, which is myself. If you're interested in joining the CVO Trading Discord, where I put all my updates, my outlooks, my insights, I have an academy where I cover all the tools, resources, and everything I use every single day in order to analyze this market, as well as a very, very user-friendly Discord server with only a few channels in it. Feel free to click the link in my bio or description below. When you get to this area here, you'll hit on get access either on your phone or on the desktop, and notice that there is a 7-day free trial, so you can try it. Everything I have to offer completely risk-free for 7 days. So here's just a little glimpse of what it looks like. Once again, just a super simple couple of channels here. These three are all just post only from me, so there's no noise from anybody else. You'll have my direct updates, which I post in here pretty much 24/7, weekends, nights, holidays, whenever. Got the CVO Academy as well, and then I have an area with exclusive videos just kind of sectioned off so you don't get muddied out in all the other posts in here. There's also a chat room and a couple of other areas for the community to post their charts, and I interact with everybody in here as well. We have a good time. So, all right, let's talk about what y'all came here to see. So Bitcoin has rotated the December range. So in the last video I put up, we had a couple of new, data sets essentially when looking at range data. And we had just re-entered into the range here, and I was looking to rotate at least the December range, which we have now done up towards $102,000. There was a volume target up here as well. Right now I'm looking to see if we come and break above this region, hold that as support, and I would look to see us continue higher here. Personally, I do anticipate that we do come up and make a new all-time high. Whether or not that's just a sweep of the all-time high or we actually push a little higher towards like 110, 115, 120. There's a lot of Fibonacci confluence up in that area, one of which being the trend-based gold pocket, which there's actually several really if you kind of start stacking them around. So I'd really say really anywhere between like 110 to this 118, let's call it 120, is the next major area for me on Bitcoin, right? That we're going to be looking for as, the next coming weeks and days kind of progress here. Now, it must be said that we do have a new weekly pivot, right? So this is a high time frame average. This is the average of price of last week. And it does sit down here. Let's take a look at our local gold pocket. It's just coming in just a little bit below that, right? So let's just say that, we were to reject from here, which would be pretty normal, right? We just rotated our range for, a whole month time frame here. We hit a volume target up here as well. So getting a, natural little retracement before the next leg up. Would not be something that's out of the question. And for me, I'd say that, we do have a target for this week that at some point, maybe likely that we hit it, right? So these do tend to get met in the following session. So in this, reference here, we're talking about last week's average is likely to be met this week. It's not a guarantee. It's some, high 60s to 70s%, hit rate. So obviously 3 to 4 of those may fail. So it's just something to kind of be aware of, just a little bit of confluence if we do start to, see a little rejection from this region. Otherwise, my overall thesis is, continuing up to a new all-time high. Whether or not we get a pullback to the weekly pivot first is the question. Now, I am actually in a pretty decent long position on Bitcoin short-term wise, right? Like just a small leverage play that I got pretty much right here at the low, which was really nice. And once again, it was just, one of the setups that I look for each and every week, which is where we came down and we swept the low, right? The previous week down here, basically right before this was like New Year's Eve. Yep. I was actually doing some traveling here when this occurred, but, ended up taking this, the long, and I had to be pretty patient. I mean, this has already been like, an 8-day time frame. Will say this is definitely a take profit area. I'll probably take some, off the table here, probably move stop loss to break even or a little bit of, in profit and allow this to continue to ride up. Looking to close that out, maybe at the all-time high or, around that 110. And the reason for that is that I just entered here at $92,000. So, it's not an amazing entry by any means compared to where we are in the chart, right? So this is just a short-term long trade for me that I'll be, kind of taking and, just kind of collecting for the short term here. This is not a, an area where I'm looking to hold this into, the next couple of months or anything like that. So very decent trade so far. It's been about a 10% move. So looking to kind of take that up just a little bit more there. So while I have actually this Bitcoin chart pulled up, while I do anticipate higher price action in the coming, like I said, days, weeks, whatever, I got to point out that, while we have some new key levels that are basically set in place now for the following, which I just mentioned. The weekly pivot has a high hit rate that we come back and revisit that level this week, right? So last week's average, this week's target. We have a couple of these as well down all the way back down below us, and these are really high time frame, right? So you're talking about last quarter. We have the average of price for Q4 of 2024 that does come down here about $86,000, and we have December's average, which comes down here about 87 as well, right? So they're both kind of stacked there. Now, the reason I bring these up is because very similar, once again, this is last quarter's average. This is this quarter's target, right? So not that it has to hit by any means, but this is something that, when FOMO starts to creep in or things like that, these are areas where you want to be aware of, because this is just like, 50-day, 200-day is the best way to put it. Moving averages, but they don't move. All right. And then on top of that, the price action has a very high statistical likelihood that it will revert to this. This is a mean reversion at the end of the day. Once again, not a guarantee. And, it's just something that we have to stack our probabilities on and kind of, hedge ourselves and position ourselves the best we can. But I bring these up because even if we are to see, new all-time highs here at, 100,000, 108,000 plus, this is something that you must be aware of, that we, could come back and see these levels. So what does that mean? Well, it's just going to have to mean whatever that means to you, because if we are at risk of a 20% pullback in Bitcoin, which realistically we're always at risk of a 20% pullback in Bitcoin, those are the areas where if you're looking to get into a new position, or, I say kind of these things all the time, right? It's like everybody's in different places. So some people are actively trading, some people are actively, entering the market, some people have been in the market for years, some people are, underwater. Like I don't know what everybody is or where everybody's at. All I can tell you is what I'm doing and how I'm approaching the market and what I'm anticipating, so that you can take that information, do more research on your own, of course, but kind of by understand, I guess, why the market may ebb and flow. Note that I don't have any other indicators on my chart. I don't look at RSI. I don't look at MACD. I don't look at really anything. All these are manually placed at that. I use indicators to help me identify some of these places where they're at, and obviously the range profile tool. But aside from that, this is all manually put out and tracked and, utilized and all those things. And I don't use the news. You'll never, truly, I may incorporate the news a little bit more as we kind of move on, but like, just because I know people have to have it. Yeah. Like I bring that up because, news pops up, it gets scary. And especially when, we're at the highs, everything's kind of the most exciting. A couple things coming up currently is we have the new president is going to get into office in a couple weeks, and everybody thinks that it's just going to be up only. It takes one bad news day for the market to see moves like this, right? So just kind of pointing that out, that we see these averages met really aggressively, right? And a lot of times you'll see something just like that, right? Come up, you take the high, you stop out everybody. You get everybody excited. The breakout traders come in. Everybody piles into altcoins, thinking the altcoin season is going to pop tomorrow. Things like that. All right, and we may just come up, claim this region, and just rock it to the upside. But I just want to put it out there and be prepared for moves like this. So once again, one of two things: you either try to take advantage of the potential for a pullback, or if you see that pullback, you're not afraid, you're not worried. These are normal reactions that we see time and time again. And if I woke up tomorrow and saw, $110,000 Bitcoin in the same day we dropped to 87, doesn't matter what the news is, doesn't matter what everything is. That's a super technical move. So that's not like my whole point of, putting this information out there and trying to convey it, right? Is just the market shouldn't ever scare you. And if you're looking for new opportunities, it's definitely not at the highs. Even though we could continue higher. And I know somebody may combat that and say, oh, a month from now, if we're at $150,000 Bitcoin and you told everybody not to buy at 100, I'm not doing that. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just pointing out the highest probabilities at the moment, and that's all we can do, right? So to me, highest probability is still higher, understanding that we're at a bit of resistance at the moment as we're at the range high. So you have to acknowledge that. And from here, even though I anticipate higher, this is not where I'd enter, right? So entry was down here, which is where I got in, as far as the late local entry, I guess you'd say. And then from here, looking to kind of scale out of that, this position here, and then look and see how things kind of progress. And that's on a short-term position, not my spot bags, anything like that. And then we'll reevaluate essentially when we come up to these levels here. And if we see something along the lines of this, where you come up, you sweep that high and you come back down, you lose it, then maybe I will look to kind of close out some of my spot holds, and not everything, but 20%, 30%, maybe even half, depending on what it is, and kind of protect that gain. Because if we see a move like this in Bitcoin, and when I'm talking about my spot bags, a lot of times that's the altcoins and things like that, because if we were to see a move like this, 20% down in Bitcoin, we all know how that affects the market. We saw just this one right here, 16%. And if you looked across the board, we had 30, 40, 50% pullbacks in the altcoins. So that's just what I'm preparing everybody for. We're just at a time where the lows we're in, at least locally, we're getting that rise to the upside. The market's going to ebb and flow. So the next thing is really to look for either the breakout and retest and hold the support, and we'll continue up, or be aware that we can come up and we can take out these highs and then get that pullback back down to 87. So that's kind of my idea point at the moment here, right? So always open to changing it as new things come in. If we start to claim this region, obviously I'm not married to the idea that we have to see a big pullback. But just kind of want to prepare and point that out for everybody. If you guys don't already, please follow me on Twitter or X under @CVO Trading. This is kind of where I put a lot of some quicker trade ideas, some updates, some results, stuff like that, right? So here's a little glimpse at the long I took on Bitcoin. Once again, basically at the low last week at that 92K. Not a super ideal, like looking to hold this for like 6 months or anything like that, even though price may continue higher. It's just risk wise, I'm looking to close this out relatively soon. If especially if we go back to the all-time highs, I'm happy with that short-term trade. It's totally separate than obviously my spot bag. But yeah, sitting there with a nice little 10%. Obviously it's on some leverage, but 10-12% on Bitcoin, really pretty decent there. I have one on XRP as well from $2, and then Ethereum. Basically, when we came down to talking about these pivots, right? That weekly pivot, monthly pivots, right? These are the previous averages that are become the next session's target, right? Or a key level. You want to see that held as support or resistance, and we can kind of mold that into some areas. And for me, it was actually an entry this time. This was actually December's pivot. So the average of price for November, which became the December target for ETH, and I ended up, taking that once it got reclaimed. So, all right, so Ethereum once again had a nice little drop last month, and then we were looking for the reclaim of that monthly pivot I was just describing earlier, which is where I got my long in from. And then we basically just kind of ranged around just below the monthly range of December. Okay. Started off our new month, basically hitting our head still. We broke back into this region here. So once again, targeting now our natural target. Once we re-enter a range, whether it's from the low or the high, we look for the point of control. So that's where we're heading to next, or where I'm targeting next at least. And similar to Bitcoin though, right? We have a little bit of a weekly target that we have to be aware of. So, we weren't just going to rocket straight up from here. And if we get a little bit of a pullback, locally, would be nothing out of the ordinary to come back down, retest these highs. This is the average of price from last week, right? Look to hold that as support, and then maybe get that next little continuation. As far as little local gold pocket goes, it does actually come in right at the range low. So even if that weak pivot isn't where we end up holding, we may even see something along those lines come back. We just broke into this range, so it wouldn't be uncommon to come back down, test the bottom of the range there, and then continue up. So those would be the two scenarios I'd look for, as far as a pullback, whether it's back to the weekly pivot or the local gold pocket. If we're not just going to, continue straight up to here to 3,800, and then potentially rotate the entire range to the upside, which is at 4,000. And then my next pretty major target actually ends up right here at 4,400. So as far as levels to the upside for ETH, it's 3,800. 4,000 at the range high, and then the daily level at $4,400 area. Now we're going a little bit more detail on why the $4,400 region is pretty important to me at the moment. And I just posted that update in Discord. So for anybody that's interested in joining, like I said, you'll get those updates, ahead of my public videos. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. But yeah, in short, still looking for more upside on ETH, at least up to that $3,800 area. Probably see how Bitcoin kind of reacts if we get a pullback in, either or. Looking to see if we get this, weekly pivot at 3,500, local gold pocket, range low down here, and then look to get that run of the rotate the range. When I say rotate the range, it just means literally rotate from low to high, or vice versa. If we're entering in from the high, we're rotating from high to low. So you'll hear that terminology, quite often. But ultimately, still looking up, potentially get a little pullback to these areas here. All right, Bitcoin dominance. I've been touching on this quite a bit here. A couple weeks back on or in November when we kind of came up and topped out for a little bit, we front ran a major level that I'd been targeting for the better part of 2024 and into the end of 2023 even. Not that we have to hit it, of course, and you could effectively, consider that met. I mean, if it doesn't have to be perfect. And most are looking at this potentially in a little bit of a, high, a low, lower high right here, and then looking for maybe a little downtrend to start off here. Now, that would be ideal for the altcoins, but if we don't get it, I do want to point out that we just came down and we are bouncing right off of a high time frame average right here, okay? And then looking to see if we actually run this back. We've got a monthly target up here at about 60%. And then realistically, I kind of imagine we come back and we front ran this here. So I imagine if we continue upward, obviously we got some ground to cover, so it's not trying to predict it. But if we start coming back up and living above these levels, I would imagine that we actually come through, we meet this level here, and then maybe even come through and fill out this gold pocket, which would not be great for the altcoins. And this would probably align with something along, a Bitcoin correction, stuff like that, right? So where the altcoins get, kind of mollywopped once again. So just pointing that out, it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but just kind of trying to align all the pieces as much as possible, right? But when this chart does either break down continually, right? Like, so we're looking for this area to break and, be lost at this point. So that we're looking for that downtrend to actually confirm. Or, we either look for the move up to this region, get the rejection from there, or and I say ideally, I don't want it because just like anybody else, I don't want the altcoins to get crushed. But in a really longer term outlook here, if we actually came up, cleared all these levels here, and then were to get the actual pullback and the drop, and this would be like, this region at least is an area where we could see several months of rejection from, that's what we really want to see, right? This was nice, 2-3 weeks of a downtrend, but we want to see that like big, like January to May 2021 style altcoin just running, right? And that's kind of where I think that this is kind of where that happens. Now, on top of all that, we've got the potential harmonic here, and the keyword really is just that. But I've been targeting this on ETH versus BTC for a long time. Similar, pretty much like all of last year at least, and then probably a little bit into the end of 2023. Got a big area down here, and the key of this is this 886 retracement, right? So that's what really is like putting this pattern into, if we come down in this region, like this would be the perfect completion zone, which once again, as much as I don't want to see more downside in the alts or even just sideways action or whatever the case may be, and maybe we don't get any downside, maybe it's just a little bit of where Bitcoin once again excels, the altcoins, are getting underperformed or they're underperforming Bitcoin. Either way, I think that, we're looking still at a little bit more downside here on the ETH versus BTC chart. And then when this does reverse, so similar to that Bitcoin dominance one, where I'm looking at, maybe we come back up to that 62% before we truly reverse. But when we do, I'm looking for months, not just weeks of like an altcoin rally. And I think that we have the same kind of recipe here as well. It just may be a little bit more downside, right? So I'm not going to try to put a time frame on it, just knowing that these are just the targets. So when, I got my alerts set, so when they start to get hit, obviously I'll come out and I'll be doing updates. But, you want to probably be positioned before something like this gets completed and reverses, because as we all know, the market moves really fast, right? So, yeah, I'm looking for that. And whether or not we get a huge move like this, back to the gold pocket or anything like that, even just this move here, which, high time frame average of price, very likely to be met this year. So that is a good sign. It's a 21% move to the upside just to that. And to put that in a retrospect, the drop and pump up here. So the little rally we got, like, what was that, November? Yeah, November into December, which didn't seem like a ton, but it was pretty decent, right? Like we had some things pretty well moving. I think you had like at least several 100% on, that was our H bar pump, 700%. That was the XRP pump. Like that was a lot of things, happened on this little 20%, pump here on ETH versus BTC. So yeah, I think that we got some upside. Just got to prepare you for a little bit more downside potentially, right? So regardless, I think we're near that bottoming area for this, once and for all, if it's not already in, right? So could this be the low? Could be, but at the moment, this just seems like it it still might unwind a little bit here. The dominance lines up with it for Bitcoin. So yeah, just kind of throwing all those things into fruition. XRP, just, a little update here. Really nothing has changed. I think the last time we looked at it, we were pretty much trading where we are now. So still looking to flip 257 for any more upside. And, I don't really love this pattern, as much now that we've spent so much time kind of trading sideways from here, but it is still, a pretty valid idea. And that's all it is at the moment, is just literally that, an idea. Can't really go off of it until we reach that completion zone. But I do still, with looking at Bitcoin potentially pushing up a little bit more, with Ethereum looking at $4,400 potentially. If we were to see those two come to play, XRP, I would imagine, gets this little pump towards this region here, at least back up to the, almost the recent highs here. But I would imagine we meet that $3. But it begins with flipping that 257. And then once again, just kind of pointing out some higher time frame averages that have generated now. We do have a lot of confluence back down at 180. So just be prepared to potentially see that in the next coming weeks at some point, right? Basically this quarter, right? High likelihood we'll come back down to that this quarter. So even if we do push all the way up to this region here and then meet it, or we just slowly kind of melt down to it now, just know that 180 is a big, big level. Lots of confluence stacked up right there. And Dogecoin I covered earlier this morning in a live stream, but I just want to kind of touch on it again. So this was a really, really nice setup, right? You had November's high. We swept it right there. A nice little pullback there. Gold pocket essentially was your target area there. Nice run right down to it. Bounced so far, back up. We had a quarterly naked point of control. That's a high time frame volume target. We've got a monthly one right above that. And we have now, if you were to pull, a gold pocket retracement to the upside, right? Because you can do that from the upside and the downside. You pull it from that high down to that low right there. You see how it's stacked up. Gives us another gold pocket area here, which is where we're running our, bumping our head into right now. So I would imagine we, probably come through and at least meet this like 41 cent area here. And similar to the XRP deal, I just want to point out a lot of confluence back down sub 30 cents again. Okay. It's right below all these lows as well. So even though we may continue higher, just don't be shocked if we get a little run back down towards that 28 cent over, next coming weeks or months here. All right. Another friendly reminder. Once again, if you're interested in joining the trading group, the link is in my bio or the description below. Enjoy 7 days completely free. Enjoy everything I have to offer, including the academy and all updates that will encompass that. And aside from that, I hope you're all enjoying the first week here of the new year. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday. I look forward to another just incredible year in this market. This is actually my 8th year in the crypto market. So knocking on my decade in this crazy, crazy world, and just to see the evolution has just been incredible. So thank you all for the support. Thank you all for anybody that's a member for being a member, and thank you all for watching my videos as well. So until next time, everybody, cheers.